The combined heroes and rival fend off threats. Skyward Guardian watches silently as Kael and Lyra grow stronger. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio to follow the adventure. The northern district burned with controlled chaos. Stone groaned beneath shifting bridges. Fountains arced like living blades, and barricades rotated through the streets with deliberate precision. The pulse beneath Terenfall no longer moved like a simple response, it moved like a mind awakening. Kael felt it immediately. Not resistance, but independence. He landed atop a rotating bridge, boots striking in rhythm with the city's pulse. Beneath him, the streets adjusted without waiting for his command. Civilians were guided through alleyways before he even focused on them. Barricades rose before Dravok's hammer could fall. Lyra noticed it too. It moved before you did. Kael didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the district as fallen knights poured through broken gates. That wasn't me. From the ridge, Dravok watched with predatory calm. His crimson-veined armor pulsed faintly in the morning light. The city moves faster, he growled. Obscuron's shadow twisted above the tree line like living smoke. It evolves. The axis accelerates the system. Gorath remained unmoving, axe resting against his shoulder. Then break the axis. Dravok stepped forward. The plaza exploded with impact. Dravok's hammer struck the ground with seismic force, sending a shockwave through 3 converging streets. Stone shattered. Bridges twisted violently. Entire buildings groaned as the pulse struggled to stabilize the district. Kael leapt forward. Lyra, East Corridor. Arrows flew instantly. Lyra severed the advance of fallen knights pouring through a fractured gate. But something unexpected happened. A barricade rotated before Kael directed it. The street closed on its own, trapping the knights in a narrowing corridor. Kael felt the pulse surge beneath him. It had anticipated the threat. Obscuron's whisper sharpened. It learns. Dravok's eyes narrowed. No, it adapts. Gorath's voice rumbled slowly. Or, it chooses. Kael sprinted across a collapsing bridge as debris fell from shattered towers. The pulse beneath the city surged again, but this time the movement wasn't perfectly aligned with his intentions. A bridge rotated slightly too early. A fountain redirected water with excessive force. The city wasn't simply responding, it was making decisions. Kael realized the truth instantly. I'm not controlling it anymore. Lyra looked toward him sharply. What? Kael deflected a fallen knight's blade, sparks scattering across stone. The pulse isn't just reacting to me. His voice dropped. It's testing me back. Kael. Dravok advanced through the district like a living siege engine. Every hammer strike collapsed more structures, forcing the pulse into faster calculations. Streets rotated. Buildings shifted. Barricades slammed into position. The city fought to preserve itself. Not Kael. Itself. Dravok raised his hammer again. This city believes it can defend itself. The weapon crashed down. The shockwave fractured the central plaza. For a moment, the pulse faltered. Bridges froze mid-rotation. Barricades hesitated. Streets lost alignment. Kael felt it like a rupture in his own chest. The system had limits. Obscuron's voice curled through the smoke. There, a weakness. Gorath nodded slowly. Every system has a breaking point. Dravok stepped forward. Then we find it. Kael closed his eyes for a brief second. He stopped trying to command the pulse. Instead, he listened. The city's rhythm returned gradually. Bridges realigned. Streets stabilized. The fountain's arcs slowed into deliberate motion. Kael exhaled. Not control, he whispered. Balance. He stepped forward again. This time, the city moved with him. Not before, not after. Together, Dravok charged. The plaza erupted with sparks as Kael's blade met shadow-forged steel. The impact rippled through the city's pulse like thunder across stone. Bridges rotated in perfect sequence. Barricades slammed into advancing knights. Lyra's arrows cut through narrow openings created by the pulse itself. The district became a living battlefield. But now Kael wasn't commanding the city. He was coexisting with it. From the ridge, Obscuron watched silently. The axis stabilizes. Gorath frowned slightly. Too quickly. Dravok stepped back slowly, studying the battlefield. His hammer lowered. For now. The shadow forces withdrew into the forest. Silence gradually returned to the northern district. Broken towers leaned against fractured streets. The pulse beneath Terenfall slowed back to its deep, steady rhythm. Kael stood alone in the plaza. Lyra approached cautiously. You felt it too. Kael nodded. The city isn't just responding anymore. He looked toward the distant foundations of Terenfall. It's waking up, far beneath the city. Beyond the deepest stone, the pulse surged again. Stronger, faster. And somewhere within the unseen depths of the system, something observed and began to learn. Deep beneath the ancient foundations of Terenfall, the pulse moved through channels long forgotten by the world above. Stone conduits carried its rhythm through buried halls and silent chambers where time had settled like dust. Faint light stirred across ancient engravings. Lines carved centuries ago flickered with a quiet glow, forming patterns that slowly awakened along the chamber walls. The city was remembering. Every movement Kael had made, every strike Dravok delivered, every hesitation, every recovery. The pulse gathered those moments like fragments of memory, threading them into a deeper rhythm within the city's hidden structure. Above, the northern district had grown quiet after the retreat. Broken stone littered the plaza. Bridges slowly returned to stable alignment. Barricades adjusted into stronger defensive positions as the system recalculated the district's stability. Kael stood at the center of it all, watching the city breathe. The pulse beneath him was calmer now, but it felt heavier, more deliberate. Lyra stepped beside him, studying the shifting streets. It's not just repairing the damage, she said quietly. Kael followed the motion of a distant bridge as it rotated slightly to correct its angle. No. His voice was thoughtful. It's improving the layout. Across the district, subtle changes continued. Pathways widened. Barricades repositioned to reinforce intersections. Even the fountains redirected their water flow toward damaged areas of the plaza. The city was reorganizing itself. Learning from the attack, Lyra crossed her arms. That's not normal. Kael nodded slowly. It's evolving. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply listened to the deep rhythm moving beneath the stone. Then Kael felt something strange. Not pressure, not resistance. A pause. The pulse shifted briefly, like a heartbeat skipping between breaths. Kael looked down at the stone beneath his boots. You feel that? Lyra frowned. Feel what? Kael knelt slightly, placing his hand against the ground. The pulse responded instantly. But this time, it didn't surge outward. It circled, as if the city itself was studying the contact. Kael withdrew his hand slowly. It's watching. Lyra's eyes sharpened. The city? Kael stood again, gaze drifting across the towering skyline of Terenfall. Not the city, he said quietly. The system beneath it, high above the forest ridge. Dravok had not yet fully withdrawn. Hidden among the broken tree line, he watched the district settle into its new rhythm. Gorath stood beside him, unmoving as a mountain. The Axis survived the second test. Dravok's crimson eyes remained fixed on Kael. For now, Obscuron's shadow drifted through the branches above them. The system adapts quickly. Dravok tightened his grip on his hammer. That will make the next phase more interesting. Gorath turned his massive head slightly. You intend to escalate again? Dravok finally turned away from the city. No, his voice carried quiet certainty. Now we observe. Obscuron hissed softly. You believe the system will reveal more? Dravok stepped into the deeper forest shadows. Yes. His final words lingered like a promise. Machines always reveal their flaws when they believe they are becoming stronger. Back in the plaza, Kael looked toward the distant districts of Terenfall. The pulse continued to move through the city stronger than before, deeper, more complex. Whatever lived within the ancient system beneath Terenfall, it was no longer sleeping. And for the first time since the battle began, the city itself was beginning to change. The shift was subtle at first. A bridge in the eastern quarter adjusted its angle without command. A line of barricades along the northern road rotated slowly, locking into a tighter defensive corridor. In the market district, shattered stones slid aside just enough to reopen a narrow passage where moments before there had only been ruin. None of it was dramatic, but none of it had been directed by Kael. Lyra noticed immediately. That wasn't you. Kael shook his head. No, he watched as another street realigned two buildings that had partially collapsed during the battle. The motion was slow, almost cautious, as if the city itself were testing the limits of its own mechanisms. The pulse beneath Terenfall deepened. Not faster, more certain. Across the rooftops, civilians cautiously emerged from hiding. Some watched the streets repair themselves in silence. Others simply moved along the newly opened paths the city provided. No one understood what was happening, but everyone could feel the difference. The city was no longer simply surviving. It was reorganizing. Kael stepped forward, sensing the rhythm beneath the stone more clearly than before. The pulse flowed through the district like a living current, branching through streets, towers, bridges, and fountains. But now, there were layers within it. Streams within the greater rhythm. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Something's moving under the plaza. Kael felt it too. Not destruction, not repair. Movement, slow, deliberate. He turned toward the northern avenue. Come on! They moved together through the damaged district, following the pulse as it guided them through newly shifting streets. Barricades slid aside just enough to allow passage, while broken structures quietly settled into safer positions. It almost felt as if the city was leading them somewhere. Lyra glanced at him. You think it's showing us something? Kael didn't answer immediately. Ahead of them, the ground trembled lightly. A circular section of stone at the center of an older plaza began to shift. Dust lifted into the air as ancient seams, hidden for centuries beneath layers of construction, slowly revealed themselves. Lyra stopped. That wasn't here before. Kael stepped closer. The stone circle rotated slightly, revealing a narrow seam running through the center like the outline of a hidden door. The pulse surged once beneath their feet. Then the seam split open with a deep, grinding sound. Ancient stone slid apart, revealing a spiral stairway descending into darkness below. Cold air rushed upward from the depths. Lyra stared into the opening. Tell me, this is not the city inviting us underground. Kael looked down into the shadowed passage, feeling the pulse flowing strongly from somewhere far below. It might be. Lyra raised an eyebrow. And you want to follow it? Kael gave a small, determined nod. Yes, she sighed quietly. Of course you do. Without hesitation, Kael stepped onto the first stair. The moment his boot touched the ancient stone, faint lines of light ignited along the walls of the stairway. Symbols carved deep into the structure awakened, one by one, illuminating the spiral descent in a soft, golden glow.